I welcome you all in this live stream preaching today, this afternoon. Indeed, it is a good day today. I want to continue with the preaching, with the series concerning Nehemiah. This is the second preaching concerning leadership. You can be youth, women, men, and other leaders. Maybe you want to be a leader. Maybe you are a leader and you want to improve, to revive your abilities, or to further, to develop further your abilities, your leadership skills. Especially when you want to build the wall, meaning the security, the protection, the prevention. When we are looking at church members or people, God's people in general, you know that prevention is better than cure. So therefore, there is a need of leaders in different areas and aspects of life. So we learn more on how God called and used Nehemiah, the cupbearer of King Artaxerxes. He was doing an ordinary work. This king, Artaxerxes, trusted him. He trusted him in such a way that he allowed him, indeed, to take his life in his hands. It means that his life was on the hands of Nehemiah, because Nehemiah could do something and it could end the king's life, the king of Persia's life. So we can see that God called and used Nehemiah in his work, from ordinary work, from in-service training type of work, but an important work where the king trusted Nehemiah. Now, God called him to do something important, to build the city, the wall of the city wall, Jerusalem wall. So it is our prayer and wish and expectation, therefore, that you will find this series useful and helpful in your role as a leader or a leader to be in various projects which God called you to do. Let us start by praying. Let us pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, we come before you. We'd like to thank you for this wonderful time, for this privilege that we are indeed before your throne, before you, to exalt you, to glorify your holy name. We come before you, dear Heavenly Father, to thank you, to thank for protection and providence. And indeed, we humble ourselves before you when we see the grace and the mercy that is bestowed on us, that is shown on us, the righteousness of Christ that we have. Hence, we are called your children. So we come before you as your children. We come before you knowing that you listen to our prayers, because indeed we are your children. We humble ourselves before you. asking you to be with us so that whatever we are going to read from your word and explain, that at the end we all say, "Thus says the Lord God Almighty." We come before you, dear Heavenly Father, that you help us so that we understand and revive our leadership, our role, our calling on behalf of your people. That we can lead your people in a renewed way, in a reformed way, in a skillful way. Help us to understand this book, to understand how you called Nehemiah, how you used him, and how you encourage him and also your people during his time to build the wall of Jerusalem. So we come before you, dear Heavenly Father, that you lead us so that we understand, especially this time where the walls of security is gone, where it is very clear that indeed we are living at the end time. This time is a difficult time where people are no longer focusing on you, on your word, on your will. Dear Heavenly Father, it was predicted by the Lord, by Jesus Christ, that these times will come. Even the apostles, even the prophets, they predicted about this time. So we are asking you, dear Heavenly Father, that you can help us so that we can understand your word even during this time and be able to lead your people even during this time. We pray all this knowing that you are listening. We pray all this knowing that you will respond even more than we have expected. We pray all this in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. We will focus on Nehemiah chapter 1 and 2. I will first read Nehemiah chapter 1, then we will discuss chapter 1. If time allows, we will go to chapter 2. Otherwise, chapter 2 will come later in a series. So this is the second teaching, the second preaching concerning Nehemiah, the leadership that God wants us to follow. Nehemiah 1. The word of Nehemiah, son of Hekaliah, in the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, while I was in the citadel of Susa, Hanani, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some other men, and I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that survived the exile and also about Jerusalem. They said to me, "Those who survived the exile and are back in the province are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire." When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. Then I said, "O Lord God of heaven, the great and awesome God, who keeps his covenant of love with those who love him and obey his commands. Let your ear be attentive and your eyes open to hear the prayer your servant is praying before you day and night for your servants, the people of Israel. I confess the sins we Israelites, including myself and my father's house, have committed against you. We have acted very wickedly towards you. We have not obeyed the commands, decrees, and laws you gave your servant Moses. Remember the instruction you gave your servant Moses, saying, "If you are faithful, I will scatter you among the nations. But if you return to me and obey my commands, then even if your exiled people are at the furthest horizon, I will gather them from there and bring them to the place I have chosen as a dwelling for my name. They are your servants and your people, whom you redeemed by your great strength and your mighty hand. O Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of these your servants and to the prayer of your servants who delight in revering your name. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man." I was a cupbearer to the king. I want to welcome you indeed in this series. This is the second preaching. This is the second teaching concerning leadership. Indeed, when we look at this chapter, Nehemiah 1, it reminds us of what God did through Nehemiah, especially here in chapter 1, what God did in the heart of Nehemiah, in the life of Nehemiah. So we are going to talk about 8 things, if not 9 C's. I will use acronym. These acronyms, they will help us to understand Nehemiah 1. There are stages. These stages, I want us to look at them so that we understand this chapter. So I will first give you a wider scope. There are 7 stages. Stage 1 is the news. The news that Nehemiah heard and how it affected him. Verse 1 to verse 4. That is stage 1. Stage 2 is his prayer. Verse 5 to verse 11. That is stage 2. So, stage 3 is in chapter 2 up to stage 7. But we'll start with stage 1 and 2. That is what we will do in this time. So now, when you check these 2 stages, they have 9 C's which I want us to use so that it can help us to remember and to reflect on the role or on our role as leaders. There is a message. There is God's word, and we must understand it. So I used 9 C's so that we can understand this message. So that at the end, we should have 4 D's. I'm using 9 C's so that they can help us to have 4 D's acronyms. 4 D's means at the end of this lesson, we should be inspired, firstly, to be dedicated, secondly, to be devoted, thirdly, to be disciplined, fourthly, to be determined. Dedicated, devotion, discipline, determined. 4 D's at the end of this lesson, at the end of this series. We should be dedicated leaders, devotional leaders, disciplined leaders, and determined leaders. But how are we going to have these 4 D's? Is when we have 9 C's in chapter 1. Then other C's will get it in stage 3 to 7, chapter 2. But chapter 1, stage 1 and 2. The first stage is from verse 1 to verse 4. A leader, a called leader, is a touched leader. How? 1, by being concerned about news. You distinguish yourself as a leader by being concerned. Others might think, no, but this is news, everyday news. But when you are touched, when you are called, you become concerned about what other people will say. It is ordinary. It is a statistics. It is what we hear every time. But to you, when God called you, firstly, you become concerned. You will see even here in Nehemiah 1, verse 1 and 2, the words of Nehemiah, son of Hikaliah. You will remember that we had an introduction concerning Nehemiah. I won't repeat. But in the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, while I was in the citadel of Susa, Hanani, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some other men, and I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that survived the exile and also about Jerusalem. And listen, verse 3. They said to me, those who survived the exile and are back in the province are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire. The reason why I'm saying, when you are called, it becomes your concern. That is the first point. It becomes your concern. We are talking of Jerusalem rebuilding, reformation from 80 years back, from Zerubbabel's time. And there were leaders who came along. Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi, Ezra, they worked there. This is not like this happened all of a sudden, immediately. It was an instant thing. It was there for decades, nearly a century. It was 80 years back. So the ruins of Jerusalem were there. Even during Zerubbabel, they started with an altar and a foundation of the temple. Ezra came also. He worked there. So even when Hanani is talking about this news of the walls which are broken down, it's not like this is an instant thing. It happened all of a sudden. It was there for decades. It was there for almost 7 or 8 decades. But when you are singled out, that is my point. First point, when you are singled out, when you are called, you start to be concerned. That is the first point. Second point, you start to be convinced. You start to have a vision. You start to have a mission. It is not only your concern, but it becomes your conviction. When you hear about those who survived the exile, they become your concern. Their number become your concern. Their lives become your concern. Because he's talking about people who survived the exile, the great trouble and disgrace they are facing because of their security. Because they lack security, they lack a wall around them. They are exposed to the enemy. And now, it is not only your concern, but you become convinced that it is my problem. Therefore, I have a vision. I have a mission. Imagine when you are in a church, you are in a community, you hear about the statistics in the community or in the church. And these statistics have been there for years, are continuing. But when you become concerned about them, then secondly, you become so convinced that it is your problem. When you see children who are not taught the Bible, who are not taught Sunday school, you become so concerned and convinced that you must do something. Starting from class 1, those children, infant to children who are younger, who are 7 or 8 years, you start to do something about it. 9 to 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, upwards. You become concerned about their program. They don't have one program, one teaching, but they have different programs. You become concerned about youth because you know what will happen if they are not secured around the word, around the Lord. If they are not ruled by the Lord's word and his spirit, you know what will happen. You know that there will be a lost sheep. You know the word of Jesus. The question which Jesus put to Peter, do you love me? Do you love me? 3 times. He wanted Peter to understand what it means to be a shepherd, to be in front of people, your first responsibility is to love the Lord. Then you will be able to lead the sheep and the lamb. So you become convinced that it is your responsibility to look after the lamb, the children, the youth, the women, single parents, men, elderly people. All these programs become your concern, and you become convinced that it is yours. And how you get to the next level is when you also become convicted. You will see in verse 4, when I heard these things, I was not just concerned like anybody. Yes, it's our concern. Yeah, we are convinced that we must do something, but he became convicted. When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. And for some days, I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. So it doesn't end in being concerned, being convinced, but one become convicted. You feel the pain. You feel how it hurts when you see children, young ones, the youth who are led astray because of this world, because of the enemy, Satan, who will never leave them. Then you feel so painful, so hurt, and you lose appetite. You don't sleep. You don't see it as fun. You lack joy, and you lose appetite even for food. Something must be done. You cry inside you. You suffer the pain of a parent who is losing the fight because there is no wall, there is no security at home, and you feel it. You feel how painful to lose a child, to lose a youth who grew up all this time at 14, at 15, at 16, then led astray. You feel the pain of youth who find that they can't get married, and years are going, 20, 30, 40, and they're asking you, what should I do? You feel the pain of single youth who are running families, who are having extended families, who are dealing with black tax, and single parents, widows, women, men, elderly. All these come to you, and it becomes a stress, and you feel the pain. You are convicted. You feel the suffering, the pain. That is the third level. That is the stage, we can say stage 1. When you hear the news, what separates you from the rest is 3 things. You are concerned, you are convinced, and you are convicted. Stage 2, prayer. Now, it should be pointed out that there are also here few aspects which must be recognized. But the first one is capacity. Generally, when we see in Nehemiah, we see someone who is capacitated. When you read this prayer, you will see somebody who is capacitated, who knows God. Here we are talking about the general observation. If you are a leader, you must be well informed about God. You must know God. Your personal relationship with God is important. Who He is, His name, His rule, and His will. What is His name, His rule, and His will? Who is He? What is He saying? What He says is important to you. His word. And what He does, His action, in the past, at present, and in future. What did He say? And how did He treat people in the past? So, you learn also this from recorded prayers. You can go to Abraham, you can go to Moses, you can go to David, you can go to Solomon, you can go to Paul, you can go to Peter's prayer, you can go to Nehemiah's prayers, you can go to Ezra's prayers, you can go to Esther's prayers. You see people of God who led their nations, who led the group of people, but they were capacitated by the knowledge of God. They know God, and you can read it in their prayers that indeed they are capacitated. They know, they have a source. They are rooted in the Word of God. Their prayers are capacitated. They have a content. Why is this important? It is very important. You don't want to find yourself as a leader who is not capacitated, who doesn't know God, and then you are forced to pray, direct your prayer to God as if you don't know Him. Jesus warned you in Matthew 6 that when you pray, you are not acting. You are not like an actor who is just acting. You know, an actor, it doesn't mind about personal life. As long as the public life, he or she is performing in the public life, he or she is there for money, for public performance. But private life is none of any people's business. So therefore, Jesus warned us that we shouldn't act when we go to God. Firstly, we shouldn't act. Secondly, we shouldn't talk things which doesn't have meaning. Matthew 6 verse 7. Things which doesn't have meaning. Things which are like infant talking or a stranger talking with you and you don't understand what he or she is saying. He warned us on that. In Matthew 6 verse 6, he said, when you pray, you must lock yourself with the Lord. You must make sure that you know who is the Lord. You address Him because you know Him. And you will see when you go through the prayer, Matthew 6, 9 downwards, 9 to 15, you will see how you address the Lord. You address His name, His rule, his will. It is informed by your reading. It is informed by how you know him. So it is very important to know his names, his rule, his will. You are capacitated. That is a general remark concerning prayers in the Bible. Study them, you will see that those who prayed there, they were capacitated. They knew God. And it is important for the leader to be capacitated. That is the first thing concerning prayer. Secondly, in this stage 2, concerning prayer, you must be covenant-minded. So it is very important that we are covenant-minded. From this capacity, from the fact that you know God, you know who he is, his name, what he does, his rule and will, it helps you to understand that he is God, the covenant God of history, of the past, of the present, of the future. You will see it even in this prayer. Nehemiah 1, verse 5. Then I said, O Lord, God of heaven, the great and the awesome God, who keeps his covenant of love with those who love him and obey his commands. He singled out God as God of the covenant. We must understand this covenant relationship with him. We are capacitated, we know him, we know who he is, we know his name, we know his rule, we know his will, because he is the covenant God. He dealt with his people in the past, and he is continuing to show his covenant promises even today, even in future. He is God of history, of the past, present, and future. That is the covenant God. As a covenant God, flowing from it, flowing from the fact that he is the covenant God, God of history, God of promise, God of personal, who is in personal relationship with us. Flowing from that, based on that, we understand his presence, his ears, his eyes, that we are communicating with him. You will see it also from verse 6. Let your ear be attentive and your eyes open to hear the prayer your servant is praying before you day and night for your servants, the people of Israel. I confess the sins we, Israel, including myself and my father's house, have committed against you. Listen, let your ear be attentive and your eyes open to hear the prayer your servant is praying before you day and night for your servants, the people of Israel. Stage 2, prayer, capacitated, covenant-minded, flowing from that, from what you know about God, from your covenant relationship with God, knowing who he is. Then, that will be the base to understand his command and his promises. To understand his presence through his word, that he listens, that he hears our prayers. That's why we go before him and pray. It is because of I'm capacitated, I know him, and I have a covenant relationship with him, and I'm confident that he listens to my prayer. So the commands and promises, I know them. They are before me, even in this prayer. I know God, that He is God who listens, who hears, who talks, and therefore I am talking with Him. Capacity, covenant, command. Then, fourth, contact, my personal contact with Him on behalf of others is very important. Prayer is very important. But now, this prayer has two dimensions. I pray, I have a personal prayer, but I pray also on behalf of others. A leader also understands his role before others. And you see, even when he prays, that he includes himself. Yes, he's doing this personal prayer. He includes himself in the sin. He acknowledged the sin of the Israelites, what they did in the past. Looking at the covenant relationship, that the Israelites continue to disobey God in the past. Looking at this covenant relation, God was always faithful. And he pictures himself, he sees himself before God, before this covenant relation, and he includes himself with the rest, with his family, that we sinned before God. That acknowledgement is very important when you are in contact with God, to acknowledge that we are unfaithful. We disobeyed God. That acknowledgement is very important for the leader. A humble leader acknowledges his or her sin before God with others, that we, myself, my family, and others, we are not right before God. And that is very important for the leader to acknowledge in the prayer. Even when he's doing the petition. Because now he is capacitated, covenant-minded, commanded. He knows God's command and promises, and he knows that we didn't do what we were supposed to do in the past. At present, we are not right before God. That is his personal acknowledgement in this prayer. And he's doing this prayer on behalf of others, interceding for others, praying also for others. That is what we see from verse 7 to 10. And what God did in the past regarding that. That He is God of justice. He punishes sin. But because of His promise, because of what He said, that if we come before Him, this is what He will do. And on that basis, He prayed. And we see this also in verse 11, when he concludes his prayer. Oh Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of this your servant, and to the prayer of your servants who delight in revering your name. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man. You see, his contact with God, his personal contact with God, which he do also on behalf of others as a leader, show us that even his petition in short is a contract. He needed a contract. Remember, he is making this petition so that he can be allowed to go to Jerusalem to build the wall. So now, let me repeat again. He is capacitated. He is covenant-minded. He knows commands of God and his promises. And on that base, he contacted God personally on behalf of others. That is the contact. That is the first element. But he understood that he is before God for a request. A request is he needed a contract. He needed to agree with the king to be allowed to go to Jerusalem. He is waking. That is the last point. The context. He is waking. He is a cup-bearer. So he is waiting for the king. So unlike Ezra, who was a priest, who was an expert in the law, who studied the law, whose work is to preach the law, to teach the law, and that is his work. So even when he went to Jerusalem, that was his task, to teach and preach the law. But unlike him, he is a cupbearer. He is having a carrier, if I may call it. He is having a carrier. His carrier is a cupbearer. So I want to you and me to distinguish this. One of his prayer requests, yes, he was capacitated. One, he was covenant-minded. Two, he knows the command and the promises of God, what God did in the past, and that was the base of his prayer at that particular time, that we sinned before God, but based on his promises, hence we come before God and pray on behalf of our people, that on the basis of his promises, we make this petition. And the petition is the contract that he must get with the king, that he must agree on the basis that indeed it is God alone who can change the hearts. So that context is important. Capacity, covenant-minded, command, contact, contract, and context is important. So that you understand also your role. Maybe you are not called as a pastor. You are not called full-time to do this task, to be a leader. You are an elder. You have your own career, but you are concerned. You are convinced that you must do something. You are convicted. You feel the pain. And you, in your prayer, it is clear that you are capacitated, you are covenant-minded, you know the command of God and his promises, and on that base, you have a personal prayers on behalf of others, on behalf of all those people you are going to serve, and you want to make sure that there are certain agreements, there are certain things that must be overcome. And in Nehemiah's time, it was concerning a contract. He must do something. He must agree with the king that he will go, but he will come back. he will continue with his work. So that context is important if you are a leader and if you want to make sure that things run smoothly. This is the first aspect which I wanted us to deal with, Nehemiah 1. That is stage 1, about the news, and stage 2, about the prayer. Stage 1, he was concerned, convinced, convicted. Stage 2, in his prayer, we see that he was a capacitated man, a covenant-minded man, a man who knows the command of God and his promises. And on that base, he made personal contact with God on his and his family and people of God on their behalf. Then his petition was to seek a contract or an agreement, because in his context, he was a cupbearer. He was not like Ezra. He couldn't do it full time. So he needed a contract of some sort. These are things which we learn in this. So may the Lord indeed be with you, so that in our second preaching, we can understand more about stage 3 to stage 7 in chapter 2 of Nehemiah. That will be the next lesson. Thank you very much. Amen.